There are people who climb the ladder of wealth so quickly that their lives appear unstoppable. Their bank accounts grow, their possessions shine, and for a moment, they stand as proof that money equals security. Yet, when a sudden crisis strikes, an economic crash, a failed investment, or a single miscalculated choice, the fortune vanishes like smoke in the wind. These stories are not rare. Entire companies built on fragile foundations crumble overnight, leaving once powerful leaders with nothing but empty titles. And then, there are others. They begin with almost nothing. No inheritance, no powerful backers, sometimes not even a diploma in their hands. Yet as the years go by, they grow stronger. Even if they lose a business, they rebuild. If they move to a new city with no contacts, they somehow form new networks that open doors. If they lose their savings, they find another way to generate income. Why? Because they carry with them something far more valuable than money. Assets no one can seize, assets that cannot be destroyed by inflation or stolen by fraud. Let's pause here and ask a simple but unsettling question. If tomorrow morning you woke up and your entire bank account was wiped clean, what would you still have left to continue your life? Would you crumble, or would you rise again? This audiobook is not about money in its visible form. It is about the invisible treasures that make someone truly wealthy. Knowledge, skills, reputation, relationships, and wisdom. These assets do not depreciate. In fact, the more you use them, the more valuable they become. They are the foundation upon which financial success is built, but they also carry something deeper: resilience. And before we continue, allow me to extend a small invitation. Wherever you are listening from, perhaps at your desk late at night, perhaps during your commute, or maybe while sitting quietly at home, take a moment to comment below where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to see how one audiobook can bring people together across different places and times. And if you find these reflections meaningful, remember to subscribe to Audiobook Sanctuary and turn on notifications so you won't miss the stories that might shift your perspective in the future. Now, imagine two paths. One person clings desperately to money as their only measure of worth, while another invests time in building knowledge, nurturing relationships, and protecting their reputation. When challenges arise, the first is left defenseless, while the second stands firm, because what truly matters cannot be taken away. Consider the story of Thomas Edison. He experienced repeated failures, thousands of unsuccessful attempts before finally creating the light bulb. Yet even when his factory burned to the ground in 1914, destroying years of work and equipment, Edison calmly told his son, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." He was not shaken, because his wealth did not lie in machines or factories. It lay in his mind, his experience, his creativity, assets invisible to the naked eye, but impossible to destroy. Within weeks, he was back to work, and soon after, he introduced new inventions to the world. His story shows us a profound truth. Money can vanish, but wisdom and skill regenerate wealth again and again. Now, let's reflect on the everyday lives of ordinary people. Imagine a skilled carpenter. Even if his shop burns down, he still has the ability to carve, shape, and build. A doctor who loses her practice still carries her knowledge in her mind and hands. A teacher who changes countries, arrives with nothing but, is able to rebuild a career because of the knowledge etched into their being. These are invisible assets at work. Resilient, portable, untouchable. The reason money alone is never enough lies in its nature. Money is a tool, not a foundation. It can amplify what you already have, but it cannot create stability on its own. Without the structure of intangible assets, skills, reputation, connections, and wisdom, money slips away quickly. It's like pouring water into a broken vessel. No matter how much you fill, it will eventually run dry. Take the 2008 financial crisis as another example. Countless investors lost fortunes overnight. But who recovered? Not necessarily those with the biggest accounts, but those who had adaptability, broad knowledge, and trusted networks. Some reinvented themselves, moving into new industries. Others used long-built reputations to attract new partners. The invisible assets became the bridge across the storm. This is why, as we open this journey together, we must redefine what it means to be rich. To be rich is not only to have money in the bank. To be rich is to possess resources within yourself that cannot be stolen, that do not expire, and that, when cultivated, generate not just wealth, but meaning. Money alone is never enough, because it cannot buy trust, it cannot buy resilience, and it cannot replace the wisdom that guides decisions when the path is unclear. Money can provide comfort, yes, but it is blind. It needs direction, and that direction comes from the invisible. And so, as we continue, we will step into the first great category of invisible wealth: knowledge and skills. These are the wings that never break, the tools that empower you to rise again no matter how many times you fall. But before we arrive there, hold on to this thought. Money is temporary. Invisible wealth is eternal. Knowledge and skills are like wings, silent, invisible, yet powerful enough to lift a person above the storms of life. Money may offer temporary shelter, but wings allow you to soar again and again, no matter how many times the ground crumbles beneath you. Think of all the people who, despite losing everything, rise because they still carry knowledge in their mind and skills in their hands. These are the assets that never break. Let us take a closer look at why knowledge and skills are the first pillars of invisible wealth. Imagine for a moment a craftsman. His tools may be stolen, his workshop may collapse, but his skill remains. He can rebuild piece by piece because his true wealth lies not in the hammer or the wood, but in the mastery of his craft. Similarly, a nurse or a doctor carries within them years of study, practice, and lived experience. If their workplace closes down, they can move to another hospital, another city, even another country, and still find work. Their wealth is embedded in who they are, not what they own. History is filled with examples of people who survived loss by leaning on their knowledge. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, thousands of businesses failed, and fortunes were wiped out. Yet many professionals, teachers, engineers, doctors, continued to thrive because the economy may collapse, but the world still needed educated minds and skilled hands. Their services remained in demand, and their knowledge carried them through. Knowledge is not just formal education. Some of the greatest entrepreneurs and innovators of our time had little in the way of degrees. Consider Henry Ford. He was not a scholar in the traditional sense, but he possessed a deep, practical understanding of mechanics and production systems. When his early businesses failed, he did not quit. He learned from every mistake, refining his understanding of efficiency and mass production. Eventually, he revolutionized the automobile industry and changed the course of history. His fortune was born not from money he had, but from knowledge he cultivated. Skills also extend beyond technical ability. They include problem-solving, communication, adaptability. Take Steve Jobs, for instance. He was famously ousted from Apple, the company he co-founded. For many, such a blow would have been final. But Jobs had something greater than shares or titles. He had vision, creativity, and the skill to bring ideas to life. He founded Next and nurtured Pixar, both of which thrived. When he eventually returned to Apple, his skills had matured even further, leading to innovations that reshaped entire industries. Jobs' story reminds us that when money and positions are stripped away, true wealth is the set of skills you carry inside. In everyday life, we can see this principle at work. Think of a teacher who loses their job at a school but can tutor privately, create online courses, or write books. Think of a chef who no longer has a restaurant but continues cooking, building a loyal following through small catering services or even social media. These people may lose the stage, but not the performance, because their skill goes with them wherever they go. Knowledge and skills also compound with time. Unlike money, which can be spent and lost, learning adds layer upon layer. Every mistake becomes a lesson, every project a training ground. The more you apply what you know, the sharper your skills become. This is why the earlier you invest in learning, the greater the return over a lifetime. Knowledge once gained is an asset that grows with use, but there is another dimension worth considering. Knowledge empowers confidence. A person with skills walks into uncertainty differently. They may not know exactly what tomorrow holds, but they know they can adapt. A skilled carpenter is not afraid of unemployment. A nurse is not terrified of moving to a new city. A writer can always create words, no matter where they are. This inner security is priceless. It is the shield that protects against fear when everything else feels unstable. Think also of immigrants throughout history. Many arrived in new lands with no wealth at all, sometimes not even the language. But they carried skills: blacksmiths, seamstresses, bakers, musicians. And with these skills, they rebuilt their lives, opened businesses, educated their children, and passed on traditions. They prove that knowledge is portable wealth, crossing oceans and generations. And yet, knowledge alone is not enough if it remains unused. It must be paired with action. A library inside your mind is valuable only when you open it and apply it. Skills sharpen through practice, not theory. That is why invisible wealth in the form of knowledge demands humility to keep learning and courage to keep applying. The world changes quickly, and those who stop learning soon find their wings clipped. Still, let us not forget, these assets are invisible. They don't sparkle like gold or make noise like coins. They are quiet, often unnoticed by outsiders. Yet when crisis comes, they speak louder than money ever could. And so, as we pause here, remember this: money can buy you time, but knowledge teaches you how to use it. Money can purchase tools, but skills decide how effectively you use them. Knowledge and skills are the wings that never break, the assets that guarantee you can rise again, no matter how many times you fall. But knowledge alone is not enough. A brilliant mind without connections may remain isolated. A skilled hand without trust may struggle to find opportunity. Which leads us to the next great form of invisible wealth: relationships, the silent currency of trust. Relationships are the silent currency of trust, flowing invisibly through every aspect of human life. Unlike money, they cannot be counted on a ledger, yet they can open doors that gold alone cannot unlock. If knowledge and skills are the wings that lift you, then relationships are the wind currents that carry you farther than you could ever fly alone. Think for a moment about the countless opportunities that never appear on job boards or public listings. They come through a recommendation, a phone call, a quiet introduction over coffee. A friend vouches for you. A mentor shares your name with someone in need. A former colleague calls you back for a project. These are transactions of trust, and they form the backbone of real success. History gives us powerful examples. Take Andrew Carnegie, the Scottish-American industrialist, who became one of the wealthiest men of his era. Carnegie was not the most technically skilled engineer, nor did he start with vast amounts of money. What he cultivated was a web of relationships with investors, business partners, and influential thinkers. These connections provided capital, advice, and opportunities. His empire was built not just on steel, but on trust and collaboration. Even in our personal lives, relationships often define our trajectory. Think of a young graduate entering the workforce. Two candidates may have equal knowledge and similar skills, but the one with mentors, strong references, and supportive peers almost always advances more quickly. This isn't favoritism, it is the natural advantage of trust. People invest in those they know, like, and believe in. Relationships are also a source of resilience. When you fall, it is often the hands of others that lift you. After the 2008 financial crisis, many small business owners survived not because of government bailouts or sudden windfalls, but because their loyal customers and partners stood by them. Trust carried them through when balance sheets could not. But what makes relationships truly powerful is their invisible compounding effect. A single connection can multiply into dozens. One friend introduces you to another, who introduces you to yet another, until your circle is filled with opportunities you could never have reached alone. Social scientists call this the strength of weak ties. The idea that acquaintances often provide more opportunities than close friends because they connect you to networks beyond your immediate circle. Let's illustrate with a modern story. Consider the rise of LinkedIn. The entire platform is built on the recognition that opportunities flow through networks. Jobs, partnerships, and collaborations emerge not from money itself, but from people connecting and sharing trust. This is why professional networking has become as essential as education. It is not who you know alone, but who knows you and trusts you. Relationships, however, are not simply about quantity. 1,000 shallow connections are not equal to a handful of genuine ones. What matters is depth, quality, and authenticity. Think of the Roman philosopher Seneca, who advised, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." Meaningful relationships are not about collecting names, but about surrounding yourself with people who inspire growth, who challenge you, and who stand by you in both prosperity and hardship. But relationships demand investment. Just like money grows through wise use, trust deepens through consistent actions. Integrity, kindness, reliability, these are the currencies that maintain strong bonds. A person who uses others only for gain quickly finds themselves isolated. But the one who nurtures, listens, and gives without expecting immediate return often reaps a harvest years later in ways they could never predict. Consider the immigrant communities across the world. Many arrived with almost nothing but built networks of support. Families pooled resources to start small businesses. Neighbors shared information about jobs. Communities provided loans without banks. These networks transformed poverty into opportunity. Their true wealth was not in their wallets, but in their willingness to trust and support one another. On a personal note, each of us can reflect. When was the last time an opportunity came into our life because of someone we knew? A job recommendation, an unexpected partnership, even a word of encouragement that pushed us forward. These are invisible gifts of relationship, yet they shape our destiny as surely as any paycheck. Relationships are not only about advancement, they are also about meaning. A life filled with money but empty of genuine human connection is a hollow life. Countless studies show that strong social bonds are the greatest predictors of happiness and longevity. The Harvard study of adult development, one of the longest-running studies in history, concluded that good relationships keep us happier and healthier than wealth or fame ever could. Invisible wealth in the form of relationships literally sustains life. But relationships, like all assets, must be cared for. They can weaken if neglected, or break if abused. This is why invisible wealth carries responsibility. To build trust is to carry a treasure more fragile than gold, but infinitely more valuable. As we leave this section, hold on to this truth. Your relationships are the bridges to opportunities money cannot buy. They are the invisible hands that steady you in storms, the silent currency that multiplies when shared. Yet, even relationships need something more to truly thrive. Without credibility, without a name that people respect, connections alone can falter. Which leads us naturally to the next asset of invisible wealth: reputation, the invisible brand you carry wherever you go. Reputation is the invisible brand you carry, a silent introduction that arrives before you step into the room and lingers long after you leave. Money can purchase influence for a season, but only reputation sustains it. It is a kind of wealth that does not clink in your pocket, yet has the power to open doors more firmly than any key. Think of reputation as the echo of your actions. Every decision you make, every promise you keep or break, leaves a mark on how others perceive you. Over time, these impressions form an invisible currency: credibility. Unlike money, which you can borrow or inherit, reputation is earned day by day. It cannot be bought outright, and once damaged, it is painfully difficult to restore. Consider the example of Abraham Lincoln. Long before he became president, Lincoln was known as Honest Abe. He built this reputation as a lawyer and local politician, often going out of his way to ensure fairness. There is a famous story where Lincoln walked miles to return a few pennies to a customer he had mistakenly overcharged. Such small acts of integrity compounded over time, crafting an identity so powerful that even his opponents could not deny it. His presidency was anchored not merely in political skill, but in the wealth of trust that his reputation had secured. On the other hand, history is filled with cautionary tales of those who squandered this wealth. Corporations with massive financial resources have collapsed when their reputations were destroyed, Enron being one of the most infamous examples. Once trust evaporated, no amount of accounting maneuvers or cash reserves could save them. Their downfall serves as a reminder. Money without reputation is fragile. Reputation without money, however, can still attract new wealth. But reputation is not only for world leaders or billionaires. In everyday life, it shapes careers and opportunities in subtle yet profound ways. Imagine two job candidates with equal skills. One has a reputation for reliability, kindness, and dedication. The other has whispers of carelessness and missed deadlines trailing behind them. Who gets the job? The decision is often made before the interview ends, guided by the invisible weight of reputation. Reputation also multiplies through relationships. When people speak your name in your absence, what story do they tell? That story travels faster than money ever could. A strong reputation turns acquaintances into advocates, making others willing to recommend, invest, or collaborate. It is an asset that grows not by hoarding, but by sharing trust. And yet, reputation is fragile. A single act of dishonesty, a careless betrayal, can undo years of careful building. This fragility is why cultivating a good name is both an art and a discipline. It requires consistency, humility, and sometimes sacrifice. There will be moments when keeping your word costs you money or convenience. But in those moments, you are purchasing something greater, the priceless currency of trust. Let's pause for a personal reflection. Think back to someone you admire deeply. Is it only their talent that impresses you? Or is it their integrity, their reliability, their consistency? Most often, admiration rests not on what people achieve, but on how they achieve it. That how is reputation. In many cultures, reputation is considered a legacy. In Japan, for example, family-run businesses sometimes last for centuries, not because of endless financial reserves, but because of the weight of the family name. Customers return generation after generation because the brand is synonymous with quality and honor. Here, reputation becomes intergenerational wealth, passed down like a precious heirloom. In modern times, personal branding is simply the digital face of reputation. Social media profiles, online reviews, and digital footprints now carry as much weight as word of mouth once did. A careless tweet, a poorly handled complaint, or a reputation for dishonesty online can shut doors globally in an instant. In this age, reputation is not local. It is global, permanent, and searchable. But when reputation is strong, it becomes a magnet. It attracts opportunities without effort. Think of Oprah Winfrey. Her brand is so strongly associated with authenticity and empathy that anything she endorses instantly gains credibility. Companies spend millions to purchase in advertising what Oprah gives in a single mention. This is the power of reputation at scale. For each of us, the invisible brand we carry may not reach millions, but it still shapes our daily lives. Reputation determines whether we are trusted with responsibility, whether people return to us for business, whether friends rely on us in times of need. It is, in truth, one of the most stable forms of invisible wealth. So, as you consider the assets you carry, ask yourself, what story does my name tell? Does it speak of integrity, reliability, and wisdom? Or does it carry doubt, inconsistency, or broken promises? Because at the end of the day, your reputation is the invisible brand that decides how far your wings of knowledge and your bridges of relationships can carry you. And yet, reputation alone is not enough. A good name opens doors, but once inside, what guides your choices? What helps you navigate the complexity of life's challenges? Here, we step into the deepest form of invisible wealth, wisdom and life experience, the compass that guides when maps are unclear. Wisdom and life experience are the compass that guides, the quiet voice inside that whispers directions when the world feels uncertain. Knowledge gives you tools, skills give you strength, relationships open doors, and reputation builds trust. But wisdom tells you which door to walk through, when to wait, and when to turn back. It is the invisible wealth that grows only with time. Through the valleys of failure and the peaks of triumph, through every scar and every lesson that life carves into us. Unlike money, wisdom cannot be inherited instantly. A fortune may be passed down overnight, but experience cannot. A child may receive millions, yet without the compass of wisdom, those millions may vanish quickly. This is why we often see lottery winners who gain wealth in an instant, but lose it just as quickly. They had money, but not the life experience to manage it. Without wisdom, money is like a ship without a rudder, drifting aimlessly, vulnerable to every storm. Wisdom is born in the fire of trial. Think of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison. He entered as a passionate activist, but through years of reflection, hardship, and observation, he emerged with a depth of wisdom that transformed him into one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century. His wealth was not material. He lived simply, but his life experience became a treasure that shaped the destiny of a nation. Life experience also teaches humility. When you are young, knowledge can make you arrogant, skills can make you confident, and reputation can make you bold. But only experience shows you how fragile life can be. It teaches you that circumstances change, people fail, and mistakes happen. With wisdom, you learn to balance confidence with caution, ambition with patience. This balance is invisible wealth. It prevents costly errors and guides you toward sustainable success. Consider the story of Colonel Harlan Sanders, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Sanders faced rejection after rejection when he tried to franchise his fried chicken recipe. Over 1,000 times, restaurants turned him away. Yet his life experience, decades of hardship, failed businesses, and constant adaptation taught him resilience. He was in his 60s when success finally came. Without wisdom, he would have quit. But his compass guided him forward, showing that perseverance itself was wealth. Wisdom also helps us recognize the value of timing. In life, even the right opportunity at the wrong time can lead to disaster. A wise farmer knows not to sow seeds in winter, no matter how fertile the soil may seem. Similarly, in business or relationships, wisdom allows you to sense when to wait and when to act. This discernment cannot be purchased. It can only be lived. One of the overlooked qualities of wisdom is perspective. When you've walked through seasons of loss, you begin to see what truly matters. A person who has experienced illness may treasure health more deeply. Someone who has lived through war may value peace with intensity others cannot grasp. This perspective is a form of wealth. It shapes decisions, prevents waste, and anchors priorities. Wisdom also transforms how we see others. When you are young, it is easy to judge quickly. But with life experience, you learn that people are complex, that everyone has a story, that even mistakes often hide lessons. This compassion enriches your relationships, strengthens your reputation, and makes you someone others trust deeply. Importantly, wisdom is cumulative. Every experience, whether joyous or painful, adds to it. Losing a job teaches adaptability. Failing at love teaches humility. Building a career teaches patience. Each lesson is like a coin added to the treasury of your soul, invisible to others, but powerful when decisions must be made. Yet wisdom is not passive. It requires reflection. Some people pass through life's hardships but learn nothing. They repeat the same mistakes, blind to the lessons. True wisdom comes when you pause, reflect, and extract meaning from what happened. In this way, invisible wealth grows not just by living long, but by living attentively. And here is a secret. Wisdom often protects you from yourself. Money can tempt you into reckless ventures. Reputation can tempt you into pride. Relationships can tempt you into dependency. But wisdom reminds you of your boundaries, keeps your ambition grounded, and ensures your wealth, visible and invisible, lasts. We see this in history again and again. Leaders who lacked wisdom but had immense power often collapsed, taking entire nations with them. Others, though less wealthy, guided by deep life experience, left legacies that endure centuries. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. His book Meditations remains one of the most profound guides for living wisely, not because of his wealth or status, but because of his reflections, born from daily struggles, wars, and responsibilities. His wisdom has outlived the empire he ruled. So where does this leave us? Knowledge and skills equip you. Relationships connect you. Reputation introduces you. but wisdom directs you. It is the compass that points true north when maps fail, when storms rage, when choices seem impossible. And yet, wisdom does not exist in isolation. When combined with the other invisible assets, knowledge, relationships, reputation, it creates something extraordinary. The power to transform intangible wealth into tangible success. That is where our journey takes us next, to see how invisible assets together produce visible results. When the unseen creates the seen. When invisible wealth creates visible success, something remarkable happens. What begins as intangible, knowledge, relationships, reputation, wisdom, eventually manifests into tangible outcomes like income, opportunities, and material stability. It is like a seed hidden in the soil. At first, no one can see it, and it seems insignificant compared to a bag of gold coins. But over time, that seed grows into a tree whose branches bear fruit, not just once, but season after season. Let us picture a person starting from nothing. They may not have money in their account, but they invest in themselves. They study relentlessly, building knowledge brick by brick. They refine skills through trial and error. They cultivate relationships, showing up for others, offering help, keeping promises. They protect their reputation by living with integrity, and they reflect on every experience to grow in wisdom. For years, their progress may look invisible to outsiders. No mansions, no flashy cars, no headlines. But slowly, unseen foundations solidify. Then one day, the results burst forth. An opportunity opens, a business thrives, a career soars, and people call it luck. But it was not luck. It was invisible wealth becoming visible. Think of J.K. Rowling, author of the Harry Potter series. Before her global fame, she was a single mother struggling to make ends meet. She had no financial wealth, but she carried within her imagination, writing skills, resilience, and the wisdom born of hardship. She also had relationships that encouraged her to keep trying despite repeated rejections from publishers. Her reputation for persistence and her storytelling craft finally found an audience, and her invisible assets exploded into one of the most visible successes of our time. This principle repeats across industries and eras. A startup founder who begins with no capital but has coding skills, a trustworthy reputation, and strong networks may one day lead a billion-dollar company. A musician who practices tirelessly, learns from failure, and builds loyal fans through genuine relationships may one day fill stadiums. Success that looks sudden is almost always the visible tip of years of invisible accumulation. But the power of intangible wealth is not only in creating financial gain, it creates sustainability. Money gained without invisible assets often disappears quickly, but money built on invisible wealth endures. A business based solely on capital, but without strong relationships or reputation, may collapse when competition arises. In contrast, a company with loyal employees, respected leadership, and a reputation for quality can withstand storms. Consider the Japanese concept of Kaizen, continuous improvement. Many Japanese companies, especially family-run ones, thrive for centuries, not because they always had vast money, but because they invested in intangible wealth. Skill mastery, reputation for reliability, relationships with customers, and the wisdom of accumulated experience. These invisible elements create tangible businesses that last generations. Let's turn now to a more personal scale. Imagine an ordinary person starting with no savings. They dedicate themselves to learning, acquiring skills in technology, communication, or craftsmanship. They join communities, offer value, and nurture genuine connections. They guard their reputation carefully, becoming known as someone dependable. They reflect on mistakes, growing wiser each year. At first, their journey is invisible, but over a decade, what emerges? Promotions, financial security, maybe even entrepreneurship. What seemed intangible slowly crystallizes into visible wealth, stability, and freedom. Invisible assets are also renewable. If you lose money but keep your knowledge, you can earn again. If you lose your job but keep your relationships, someone will open a new door. If your business fails but your reputation remains, investors may still believe in your next venture. If everything collapses but you carry wisdom, you will know how to start again. This is why invisible wealth is greater than money. It regenerates. A story worth remembering is that of Howard Schultz, the man behind Starbucks. He grew up in poverty with no financial wealth, but he developed skills in business, built strong relationships, and nurtured a reputation for vision and resilience. When he saw a small chain of coffee shops, he transformed it into a global empire, not with inherited money, but with the invisible assets he had accumulated. Today, Starbucks is a visible success rooted in invisible wealth. This brings us to the ultimate truth. Invisible wealth is the foundation upon which visible success is built. Without it, money is fragile, unstable, fleeting. With it, even the smallest opportunity can multiply. And when the unseen aligns, the skills, the trust, the credibility, the wisdom, it creates a force that shapes the scene. Now let us draw our journey to a close. We have traveled through the landscapes of invisible wealth, knowledge and skills, relationships, reputation, and wisdom. These are the four great assets that form the unseen pillars of a lasting fortune. Unlike money, they do not rust, inflate, or vanish overnight. They live within you, shaping every step you take. Knowledge and skills are the wings that never break, carrying you higher no matter how many times you fall. Relationships are the silent currency of trust, opening doors no amount of gold could buy. Reputation is the invisible brand you carry, a shield and a magnet in one. And wisdom is the compass that guides you, ensuring that your journey does not end in ruin, but in fulfillment. Together, these invisible assets create visible results. They transform hardship into resilience, opportunities into success, and ordinary lives into extraordinary legacies. The truth is simple yet profound. Money may open the stage, but invisible wealth writes the script. We must remember that money can be lost in a single night. Markets crash, jobs vanish, fortunes evaporate. But once invisible assets are etched into who you are, they stay. They are not stored in a vault. They are carried in your mind, your character, your relationships, and your lived experiences. So, if today you feel poor because your bank account is small, pause and ask, what invisible assets am I building? Am I learning? Am I nurturing relationships? Am I protecting my reputation? Am I reflecting on experience? Because if you are, then you are already wealthy. Perhaps wealthier than those who appear rich but stand on fragile ground. The world often tells us to chase money, but the wiser path is to cultivate what money will eventually chase. Build your knowledge, invest in your relationships, protect your name, learn from every step. Do this, and visible success will come, not as the goal, but as the natural harvest of your invisible wealth. You do not need to run endlessly after money. Build your invisible fortune, and money will follow you like a shadow follows the body. And so, I leave you with this invitation. Look at your life today and ask, What kind of wealth am I really building? The answer may change not just your finances, but the very way you live.